the art of Zentangle and how we can apply that to our turnings. Those of you that don't think that you can do this, trust me, you can. I've done it. And when you want to take it to an art form, all you have to do is talk to Sharon. She'll show you some demonstrations over here of how exciting that can be as you go through that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Susan and Jim, who got the presentation for us here tonight.
Thank you. Well, I'm Susan Thillen. I actually am a wood turner as well. My husband does much bigger things, and he's much more experienced than I am. I do small things. But we were at the Florida National Symposium last summer, and I happened to wander into one of the sessions, and there was a gentleman and a lady giving a presentation, and it was about including Zentangle on their pieces. And so, of course, I had to go up and talk to her. Are you certified? And, you know, I'm asking her all kinds of questions. And she's not certified, and she picked it up. She was just adding it to her pieces as part of what her and her husband were doing. So then we go to SWAT, and we're at SWAT, and I give a presentation to the spouses on Zentangle and actually teach a class, and then come out and happen to sit in one of Dixie's classes, and Dixie is using it as a surface treatment on hers. And so then I go find John or somebody, John, and I'm like, can I come teach? and they're like, what are you talking about? So here I am, and hopefully you will find something that you can use this for. Usually when I get done with, now this is just a demonstration, this is not a full-blown class. Usually classes are 2.5 hours, and you actually pay for it. And so this this is directed specifically at how you would use it with wood. And so that's why Jim is here, is because he has a whole lot more experience with the wood stuff than what I do. So I'm going to teach you some Zentangle and tell you a little bit about it. But as far as the actual wood stuff, he's going to speak to that part. So save your questions for that part to him, okay? Because I won't answer those. So to get you started, we'll switch to the PowerPoint. And I think this is online in case you tactile pleasure to it. In other words, this is a, and I'll pass those around, this is a fine, if you want to call it that, watercolor paper. And so it's very nice to touch. You'll notice that it doesn't have sharp edges. Now the ones we're going to give you tonight do have sharp edges. But they have rounded corners, which means there's no up, down, left, or right. So there's no right or wrong. You can't hang it wrong because it's not, you know, up or down. And that's part of the principle of it. It fits in a pocket. So guys, it fits in your pocket. And it goes through the washing machine because Rick tried that. Because he would carry a stack of them with him, and he would, you know, write on them. They went through a lot of different, am I doing this right? Okay. I'm a teacher, so, you know, I'm used to yelling at you. They went through a lot of process of trying to determine what pen would work best. And so the pen that we normally use when we Zentangle is a Micron Segura Pen, and they come with different, the tips. Some of them are very fine, and some of them are thicker, and then some of them are even thicker still, which are good for filling in areas. But these are archival inks, meaning that they are they don't fade. They're not supposed to, they're supposed to withstand light on them. So it's a fine artist. And their thought on this was if we're going to go through so much effort to get this so it feels good, and it's something that you can hold, and it's going to be archival, you should do this with the intention that The story I was going to tell you was that I took my tile into the doctor's office, and I'm sitting there tangling, and I go in and and the doctor does, you know, the temperature and the blood pressure and all that, and they give me my blood pressure, and it's something like 110/60 or something, and they're like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I'm fine." "Why, what's wrong?" "Well, that's kind of low." And I'm like, "Well, I have low blood pressure anyway," and I didn't say, "Well, I've been Zentangling," but it was lower because I had been sitting there Zentangling. It's just, you will find if you do this that your brain switches from whatever it is that you're stressing about to you're focusing on literally drawing a line. So it has some strange benefits, but it's kind of cool. It does help you focus. So as you're trying to improve your memory or retain your memory, in my case, it adds to that. It helps your hand-eye coordination. So there's a lot of benefits to it besides just the fact that you can use this on your wood. At the end, we're going to take a picture because I'm going to ask you all to participate and then to turn in your tile. So you need to be sure you put your name on your tile. And turn in your tile, and we're going to take a picture. And you will be amazed that you all are going to do the exact same patterns, but when we put them together, the differences, what we've made is going to be so beautiful, but you've all approached it from a different way and used different strokes and different, you know, some of you are shakier, some of you are very straight, and I think you'll really see why that team and community building is so cool, how that works. All right, so next one. The thought process that applies to the patterns is patterns are everywhere. They're in pineapples, they're in flowers, they're in bark, they're in bricks. I mean, you can look around a room, you can look at people's shirts. People have used patterns forever. And so what Rick and Maria did is they started looking at things and thinking of it from an artist's point of view and breaking it into steps. So their tagline is you can draw anything one stroke at a time. So part of their method is for you to be able to look at a pattern and say, okay, well, I want to do that pattern. How can I break it down so that it's going to end up looking like this, but it's going to be in very simple steps? And so the patterns, like I said, that I'm going to show you tonight are relatively simple, but they're with the intention that you would actually put them on wood, and then how the wood might impact your putting it on there depending on what method you use. So if you're going to carve, if you're going to burn, if you're going to draw, whatever that happens to be. That almost looks like a duplicate slide. We'll keep going. All right, so our first one, and so what we would like for you to do is if you would take one of these and pass those back. And if you need something to draw on, take one of these. And it's not going to matter if you want to use a pen or a pencil, because tonight you're just doing patterns. Normally when we do a class, we would draw with the Micron Segura pens, and you would use a pencil for shading. And we're not going to do the shading part of it because you probably would not shade on wood, but that's part of Jim's conversation, is how you would think about that process of what would happen if you were trying to get that pattern to actually have a shadow on it on your wood. So if you would, first off, put your name on your tile so you can get it back, because it's going to be a treasure. Anybody, do you need more of these? You a pencil? You got one? Yeah. Okay. You got it? You good? Everybody's got cards. You need something to write with? Anybody need a pen? I don't have pens? I don't understand that at all. I can't imagine why I brought my little. I get him. Okay, before those of you that I just gave pens to, if I gave you a 1, don't use that, please, because it will be like huge. No, you're a 08. You're fine. You're okay.
No, I'm not. This says a 1.
Let me see if I
got a 1 here.
Okay.
Here.
The 8 will be okay. Well, you can use either one. The 1 is just going to be, no, it's an 01. And that one's okay. That one's very fine. And so you just, if you press hard, the tip will probably bend. Do you want to use a 1? It's fatter? Okay. Maybe.
What did you call this?
A tile.
No. What do I ask for at the art store?
Oh, they won't have them at the art store. They don't they don't sell them at Michael's or at
What, the Micron?
no, the tiles. The tiles.
They have a limited number of pins. They like at Hobby Lobby or Joann's.
The pins you can get, usually they're like $2.50, $3. I mean, it's an expensive pen. I usually buy them online in like the case that he's carrying around now because, yeah. Okay, are we good? Okay, first pattern, and you don't need to write down these names because they don't matter. If you want to write them down, then fine. Mike's going to have to remind me what the second pattern is that I'm going to teach you. What we're going to do first is we're going to divide your tile up so we have our sections. I'm going to just use this whole pad so that you can see, and I'm going to make a W. And actually, I'm just going to extend that. So all I want you to do is on your tile, you can make an X. You can make a Z, because what you're doing is just, right now, all you're doing is dividing it. You can use straight lines, or you can use curvy lines. Too many instructions, I've lost you already. You can make an X. It doesn't matter. Let's go for 4 sections. And then we'll do another one on the back that I have a prize for if you can figure out what that one is. It's going to be a trick one. Okay? Do what? That'll be good. So just divide it up so that you've got 4 sections. The first pattern that we're going to do is called Hollybaugh. Maria's daughter, that's her maiden name, and so her married name, and so she named it after that. And so what we're going to do with that is we're going to start out and we're going to make 2 lines, and they're going to be relatively close together, kind of like a highway. It doesn't matter which, remember, there's no right or wrong, there's no up or down. So all you're doing is making 2 lines parallel to each other. And if you take a Zentangle class, you'll learn this pattern again because it's one of the basic ones that has a huge impact on any patterns that you do. So your second step is you're going to make 2 more lines. And when you get to that first path that you made, you stop. And you can think of it in terms of skipping over it or going under it, either one. But you're going to make another set of paths so that it skips over or goes under, whichever way you want to look at it. And the important part about this particular pattern is that just that right there is that when you get to a line, and this is going to be true of any pattern that you do, when you run into a pattern or you run into an edge, you stop. Easy enough, right? Okay, good. So we can go on. So you can do another one, put it someplace, and you're going to make another path. I've got one. I think that's on the list, actually. You'll like it. I think it's called it's Kiko. Isn't that on my list? Did I do Kiko?
Yes.
Okay. And so then we're going to do another one. And
Original 2 lines?
no, there is no, and I made the mistake. I should not have gone back and forth like I did, because I've led you astray as far as it doesn't matter if they go vertically, horizontally, diagonally. There are some of the patterns that will have a curve in them. In other words, you can take this pattern and modify it a little bit. Usually when I draw at the side, my lines don't match up. Now, this should look like something that you played with when you were a child. Or it's when you cook something that's Italian. What is it? Meatballs. Spaghetti or pickup sticks? Anybody play pickup sticks? Okay. So, I mean, this is what this really looks like, is pickup sticks, spaghetti. But the important part of this is that you are actually stopping, jumping over, going under, whichever way you want to look at it. Depends on if you're left-brained or right-brained. And going on. And if we were actually going to do this in a class, your next step would be to shade this. And I don't know if you can see that or not. But you shade it so it lines up next to the one that's on top, so the shadow goes to either side of it. And we're not doing shadows, so you don't have to worry about that. But this becomes really important when you're working in wood and you're trying to decide what goes on top and what goes underneath. And so remembering that you've got to stop, that you can't keep going on with that line is really important. So any questions about Holly Ball? Cool? See, you can do this. Is the next one Kiko?
I think so. There are 5.
Okay, Kiko is next. Okay. And we may not do, probably not going to do all of those. We'll see how far we get. I have a time limit. Print temps is based on a spiral. And so what I want you to do is I want you to start and just make a spiral. And when you get tired of making that spiral, stop. I think this is one of them that Dixie used on one of her surface treatments. Mm-mm. Nope. You can start at the inside, you can start at the outside. This is also, you can modify this if you don't like spirals and make it a square. Okay, does that make sense? So I could go like I'm making a maze, okay, with angles, for those of you like your corners. So instead of going this way, if you wanted to make it squares, you could do that. So your next step, again, is, so I'm going to do another spiral. It doesn't matter where I put it, but when I hit this one, I stop. And if I wanted to, I could keep going with it and wrap it around again and stop. And then for those of you in the group, in the class, listen to me. Those of you in the class that are overachievers, if you want to be like really technically advanced, if you wanted to give it a highlight, what you would do is you would do your spiral and then you would skip and pick up and skip and pick up. And you notice that I don't draw very well from a side. And now that becomes my little highlight, like I'm trying to make it look like there is a highlight where light is hitting and reflecting off of that spiral. So then you just keep going on this piece, and you just keep when I hit that corner over on the edge, I stop. Oops. Do you notice how quiet it is? Normally when I'm teaching Zentangle, we have some mood music, because this is what happens is when you start getting to this point, you start focusing. Remember, one of the things was on there is that it helps your focus, but it distresses you. Well, you're concentrating on making this circle, or you're concentrating on making these lines, or you're concentrating on skipping when it's time to skip. And so you forced your brain to stop thinking about the IRS or what you got to do tomorrow at your job, or whatever. And so that's why it is so distressing. De-stressing, not distressing. So our next pattern, and I'm going from ones that are lines to ones that are circles, just so that you can see that there are circles, and you can also start at the edge. So if I wanted that, I'm just going to not show that beginning spiral, and I can make them smaller. Okay. The next one was Kiko, and some people tell me Kiko is hard. So we'll see. Starts out really easy. What you do with Kiko is you make 3 lines. Doesn't matter if they're vertical or horizontal. So pick your next section that's empty and make 3 lines.
Just anywhere.
Just anywhere. You're just going to pick another one of your empty sections, and you're going to make 3 lines. And then on one side or the other, you're going to make 3 or 4 more lines. And it's not going to matter if they're 3 or 4. And then you're going to make 3 or 4 more. So it starts out that you're kind of going in either like a border, and you're going horizontally, or you're going vertically, or if you started in an angle, but you start out going, kind of get your pattern going in one direction. So I'm going to go ahead and carry this, I'm going to go ahead and carry this on to the side. And I guess it gets hard when you have to get past 3 or 4. So it kind of looks like that at this point. And then you're going to find where you've got a edge, whether it's vertical or horizontal, and you're going to make 3 or 4 more. So then the pattern just continues. And it's not right or wrong if they don't touch. Mine usually get pretty sloppy at some point. And if you leave a gap there, it actually will end up again looking, this is the one that turns out looking like tweed. Somebody mentioned fabric before. We were in Seattle, and I went to the bathroom someplace, and I closed the door, and there was Kiko looking right back at me. I was like, oh my gosh, there's Kiko. But it was just, that was the pattern that was on the whatever the door was made out of. So you would just keep going with that. This one I think would probably be pretty easy, if it makes sense to you, to do on wood. So is that hard? It is hard? Usually I walk around and check you. You don't want me to check you? So, simple lines, nothing fancy. It's okay to curve them. It's okay for them to have a little bit of a curve to them. That just makes it look like it's got more of a bulge to it than it just being straight. What's next? What's next?
MSST.
Missed. Yes.
The horizontal and vertical lines sort of line up. Is it okay for them to be offset?
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. Yeah. You can add a wiggle to them. I mean, you can add a curve to them. They don't need to be evenly spaced. They don't need to be always three or always four. There's times that, I don't focus as well as I should probably, and I'll end up with, if I put 5 in here, are you going to count that and tell me, oh, you got 5 there? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. What really matters, what really will determine your pattern is that very first one that you make. So if you look at the grain of your wood and you want it to go with the grain of the wood, then I would probably line my pattern up to follow that. But this is not horizontal. I mean, it's not perfectly, no, it's not horizontal at all. It's vertical. Hello. If it is, if I hold it this way. But do you see, it's really not going to matter. And the grain is going to kind of disappear anyway, so even that's not going to matter. So it really just kind of depends on, how I want it to be. Well, no, not necessarily. No, it's not vertical or horizontal. It's just, they're just lines. And it's just, 3 or 4, and then you turn it 90 degrees and do 3 or 4 more that way. That's probably the better description, is that they're going in one direction and then you turn it. And if this was actually a tile, if we were actually in class, we do teach you in class to turn your tile. I mean, that again is why it doesn't have an up or a down. And so if it's easier at this point for you to turn your tile and find your next empty one, then turn your tile, because the idea is that if you are right-handed, your empty space should always be on your right side, should be always closest to where you're drawing. Does that make sense? And that would be really important when you're working on wood. Where'd my blank one go? Working on wood is I would need to look at how I'm going to approach this. If this was a bowl and I'm going to go around it, then I'm going to go around this whole piece here and then move over and keep going, rather than trying to go this way, because if it was me, I would go around it and my line would be going this way, which may not be a bad thing. That could just make it more interesting if it's going at an angle. But this one in particular is really going to be based more on where you put that first row, column, however you look at it. Okay, we're not going to do mist. What's the next one?
Fescue.
Okay, we'll do fescue. Anybody know what fescue is? All right. So that one should be an easy one for you to draw, right? Because actually all it is you're just going to go up and hook it and then put the piece of seed at the top. Now this one doesn't have 2 lines to it. My pen's running out of ink. And so what you do with this one is you just yeah, because I'm writing it at an angle. Let's try this one for a minute. So this one, you're just going to vary where your pot. Oh, that one actually is really good. It's a hook with the seed pod at the end. Mine vary a lot.
They all need to start on the same line.
Not necessarily. If you were doing this on a bowl and you were going to do this on the flat surface here, then I probably would, start at this edge or this edge, and work around it that way. But there's not a right, I mean, you could change those and make them more circular. And then depending on your carving skills or however you wanted to treat that circle, you could do something else with that.
Thinking about using wood burning on the wood then, or carving, or
Any of the above. Any of the above. You could use ink on them. I did not do this in the order to you can feel where the ink is. I should have put the ink down first and then the finish on it. But all that is I believe that's an 08 pen, black pen that I used on that. And then, I don't have a white one. The white is also a Micron Segura pen that you see on the pendant. It doesn't come in different pen tips. But it's still a Micron Segura white. All right, this one is intended to be like a border. And this one is actually mine. This one is called Indian, NDN, because at the time I worked for Keller High School and they were Indians. And I did it because I saw the rug in the principal's office. So I'm telling you, there's patterns all over the place. So what we're going to do is I'm actually going to use this last line that I made. And if you've run out of space, turn it over. Just don't write on your name because your name was important. And I'm going to make another line parallel to that. So now think in terms of that I'm doing this on a bowl. So I'm actually going to turn this line that represents this edge here, and I'm going to turn this line next to it. So I'm just going to leave a gap. And then I'm going to do another line. I'm actually doing two more. Sorry, my parallel lines are not working very well. Well, this is a highway or this is a path. So you've got two lines, you're skipping a big space, and then you've got two lines. Because I have that kind of time. Yeah, I sit at my desk and I Zentangle. Yeah.
So does your high schooler.
I wish. That would certainly be de-stressing. So then you're going to, and I'm going to start on this side, you're going to make a triangle. And actually, you don't need to make the whole triangle. You're just going to make the two sides of it. You're going to make a pyramid, however you want to look at that. So based on one of your skinny lines, you're going to make it so the point goes into the middle of that big open space. And you'll notice I didn't go all the way to the edge. And then I'm going to make another one on this side, opposite. And although I'm drawing from the side, I'm trying to keep them relatively close to the same size. And I'm just going to keep going with that. So one down, one up, and then I've run out of space. And so this is really the pattern, okay? This is where I stop and you say, okay, what do I want to do with this next? Well, if you're doing this because you've turned these two lines to get them nice and even, nice and straight, the whole bit, you've come in and done these. So if you're a carver, do you carve this or do you carve this? Because you can't do it wrong, right? But, I mean, that's your thought process is now you've got to figure out which one are you going to carve. You could come in, and this is what the real pattern is I actually, when I did this, I put lines here. Yeah, so I'm not going into my pyramids, or my triangles. I'm doing it outside of that. Which would give you just a whole nother option as far as what would you could also carve in those. And as far as burning, I mean, you can burn the whole thing. All right, can you do one more? This is the prize winner. Can you do it? Okay. So here's how this game works. Whoever figures out what this pattern is based off of first gets a prize. What it actually turns out to be. Okay, y'all ready? So, I know it. You have to see who it is, okay? You're watching. Who gets it first? Who gets it first? Okay, so you're going to go out, down, in, down, out, down, and this you have to do another row of these before you're going to be able to figure this out. Just saying.
Greek.
Okay?
Greek.
Dental.
The top of the Jackson. The gear.
Nope. Nope. Nope.
Parking lot.
Nope. Nope.
Dovetail.
Nope.
Box joint.
Arrow. Oh, sorry. What did you say? No, but no, let's not. Oh, yeah, they're arrows. They're arrows. No, they're arrows. That was fun. Which way the arrows?
Allison.
Really cool.
Now, was that hard? I mean, y'all could go across, down, right? This was one of Rick's. They're arrows. Yeah, they're arrows. The name of this pattern is called Shui, and I have no idea why he named it Shui. But he was looking at arrows and figured there had to be an easier way to teach people to draw arrows. And so he came up with this steps in the pattern. So who got it?
Well, I don't really know if anybody did. I've seen them before. And I told her, she called it out.
But I
so
didn't see it
I don't
until
think
she did, but no,
Yeah.
I don't get it. Whoever did it.
She didn't see it until.
No, I really did not know. And then when she did that, it just kind of came out.
I didn't bring him any prizes. All right, so it's now Jim's turn. So before I turn it over to Jim, do you have any questions for me as far as patterns?
Very good job.
There are 120 official patterns. In other words, they come from Rick and Maria. If you go to tanglepatterns.com, on the internet. There are a bajillion of them because the lady there actually seriously, there could be a bajillion there. People submit, you know, they'll see something and they'll say, well, I think if you do this, this, and this, and you break it down into steps. And I have a few books left. This is the last of my inventory. They're $5 if anybody wants one. What we do is we break them down into steps, just like I've given them to you, except that they actually show, like, you know, step by step. And so on tanglepatterns.com, that's what she's done, is she's accumulated. People say, oh, well, I think if you do this, 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 and this, then, you know, my Indian one is not there, just simply because there's many of them that are very similar to that, and so I didn't submit it because it's similar to other ones, because there's a lot of different ways that you can make that border type of thing. Here. Take that. Do you want to wear the apron?
What do I do with this? I got a big ear. It's okay. All right. Well, my experience as a wood turner is about 2.5 years. As far as a carver, it's about 3 months. It's since SWAT. I went to Dixie Biggs' class at SWAT, and she was going through some of this stuff, and then I went home and I bought me a master carver. And it works out real nice, those little master carvers. And so Susan did the Zentangle there, so she came home and said, why don't you see what you could do on the wood? And you can see not very much yet. It's, you know, I got a lot of other stuff going on, but just trying to go through and understand how to use the tool in the first place. I'm still in that stage, but then working with some of the patterns, and I can tell you, you know, the biggest thing for me is deciding what to actually relieve or carve, and what to not to carve, and to create whatever pattern to make. So I think for me, it's going to be a lot of experimenting, a lot of practice, just learn how to carve in the first place, and then experimenting on what to do with a pattern, which where to relieve it, where not to. And I think Dixie did a few different things. She did a master carver, and I think she also had she just had an engraver, where she would just barely engrave, which would probably be a little bit easier. Then she'd stain, and then she put some wax in there to highlight the carvings. So. And then there's wood burning. You can also go in there and just wood burn out the pattern after you draw it on a piece of wood or vessel, or just draw it. And I think Sharon brought a couple. You just drew some on. Look real nice too. So, but my biggest thing is I got to practice my drawing. So I got my teacher here, but I'm just starting off, just experimenting. And I think different woods carve better. This is some Bradford pear I had. I think Bradford pear carves real nice as far as what my experience. It's not very grainy. It's real smooth and dense and carves out nice. And then that's pretty much it. I think a lot of you other wood turners that do embellishing probably have some things you could add about ideas on what to do with wood turning. You know, I think you could put it on a vessel, you can do it on pendants, you can do it on pretty much everything. That's pretty much all I got to add as far as turning.
Examples underneath here so we can kind of get them up on the screen.
Yeah, I've been working on this for quite a long time. First off, I didn't want to screw it up, and so that's why I took those little squares and practice with them first, and then come back on here and just take my time and try to figure out which direction to go. And again, I'm not even sure yet on. If you've noticed, I started doing something to one of these outside areas, and I'm not sure what I want to do there yet. but just having the lines itself there gives you some kind of embellishment there. Any questions or? Well, the leaves, this isn't much Zentangle, but this is some, just practicing my carving. Yeah, you know, just trying to practice carving some leaves and then, yeah, this is like my first thing I ever carved. Yeah, that's the 2 leaves are the first ones I carved, and I'm just practicing. So, but I do some turning, some segmented, and now I'd like to practice some carving. So that's basically where I'm going. Any questions?
Not so much a question as a comment. You talk about just getting started. Many years ago at Dallas Club, we had a potter come and talk about form and shape and stuff. And he says, I'm in awe of you guys because you spend, I do this stuff in 3 to 4 or 5 minutes, and you guys spend 6 hours on one little bowl, you know, and because you don't want to screw it up.
Yeah.
You blow this thing and it shatters and explodes, and that's why practicing with this thing is going to be. At least I would think you'd be pretty gutsy to step in and after you've gotten something perfect on the shape, and then you decide, well, I want to attack it with a pen and burn it.
Yeah. Well, that's why I made some squares up and just a lot of practicing.
Power carver?
Yeah, that was with the Master Carver. It's that little blue one that goes real high speed. Actually, real nice.
Is that a reciprocating carver, or is that a...
No, it's just rotary carver, go high speed. It goes, I think, 25,000, 35,000 RPM. Yeah. Yeah, those are actually real nice. I think, yeah.
Any other questions? I think it really works. This is the most peaceful group. We've got our doc here. Well, go start checking pulses and blood pressure. See if we're cool. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
The plate that's got the little peaks around the edge, that one, I think. Is the object to make them more uniform, or are you after freeform?
She drew it. I was carving it.
It would be just really what your purpose is. I had him draw it so that these were like parentheses. The parentheses mark. I mean, that's really all that that is.
Well, I had an idea while I was looking at that. And my idea was, first of all, everything we buy comes in plastic now. Horrible plastic that you can't get into. But that plastic is a wonderful thing to make patterns out of.
Mm-hmm.
And you could draw one that you considered perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could go around the edge of that with your plastic pattern and make them uniform and expand on it. You'd have to have 2 patterns, one to make the inner line and one to make the outside line.
They're the same.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I did freehand them, but the intention is that they are the same. So in other words, I make one parentheses and do both of them. The reason that there's actually a line between there is we were talking about how he could do the relief on it, and have it up and down. And so, I almost thought we were going to come to blows on this one because we were, sorry, I love you. Because of the idea of trying to get the veins. First off, there was how do you get the top leaf to be on top and how do you get the bottom leaf to be on the bottom? And then how do you show the veins that are in the leaf so that the top leaf has the veins on top and the bottom leaf is not as high as the top leaf? Does that make sense? So this bottom leaf down here, trying to get that geometry of what's on top and what's on bottom and the levels of relief is what really kind of led us into doing this one and then trying to decide, because this was simpler than what the leaves were. And so trying to understand, how to get the what's up and what's down, to work right. And so that line that's actually in the middle wasn't there intentionally. It was to have the conversation of, okay, should it be up or down? That makes sense. But you're right. I mean, you can make the patterns, and if you want them consistent or if you want them, if it's truly a handmade piece, then if it's not exact, then it's just because it's handmade. And that's the beauty of it. That's the artistry of it. If you like it exact, then having a pattern, especially on wood, because even drawing on wood, even when I did the little pendant, when you hit that grain or you hit just a little rough spot, I did that on top of the finish, and so it wasn't glass smooth. And so, all it takes is one little bump and that pen has jumped, and all of a sudden, your pen has gone someplace else. And that's going to be whether it's a carver or a burner as well, there's going to be a reaction. So it really is, there's a practice, there's a learning curve to it, and just how much you're going to put into it. You can do just dots. And there's a pattern that is really, it's just the spiral, the print temps one that I showed you. But you could do that with just dots, so that there's dots, and then you turn over and you do another spiral in dots. And so all you're doing is making a dent in the wood, and you're not trying to control your line. Does that make sense? And I would probably start with something like that if I'm trying to understand my wood, if I'm trying to, get the feel of actually my tool and my wood. I would probably start with something simple like that to see how I can control that and what kind of relief I'm going to get out of that.
Susan, were we going to, everyone pass these in and put them on the
We
table?
were.
Where do we want to
Right
have
here is good.
everyone pass the floor? Now
Okay.
check, make sure your name is on the back. And
Since nobody's going to clear the price, these go over on the
I'll start collecting
ring
right here.
bags.
This would be great for basic stuff for when I had primary kids, talking about patterns and stuff and how you make, that would have been so cool to know and have just like 3 patterns. And then you just show how to make a pattern.
I think you ought to rotate that one about 9 degrees.
So who wins the free class then?
So you all did the exact same patterns, and this is what you've come up with. So as a group, you've come up with a very unique, very special artwork. You all had a part in it. We could not have made that unique of a piece of artwork without everybody participating. And so one of the things that people have done with Zentangle is taken it to their corporate offices and done, a session with them and said, look at what we can do when we work together. And how unique, we all are working towards the same goal. You all work towards the same patterns. And so this is what you've been able to accomplish by everybody pooling their resources, and how much we've accomplished in an hour as compared to if we had to produce this many tiles and just one person was doing it by themselves. Isn't that cool?